Okay, it's time to plant up the hoop house if you have a hoop house. And today I'm going to talk about all the different methods that you can use when you go to do that. There's a lot, and we're going to discuss each one.
Welcome to Learn Cut Flower Growing. Whether you are an inspiring green thumb, a busy mompreneur, or simply seeking a passion, you are in the right place. If I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I would do it smarter. And that's what I'm sharing here. I want to take years off your learning and help you bloom with confidence in your garden. Each episode, I'll share practical tips and ideas, heartfelt stories, and expert insights to help you grow and find balance in your journey. I'm Paula Rice, your cut flower farmer guide. I've been growing for 16 years, and I'm an expert in my field, literally. So grab your gardening gloves and listen to me while you work, or grab a cup of coffee and relax as you learn to manage a cut flower garden and business.
All right, so today I'm attempting to do the podcast right here in my hoop house because I feel that's going to really help you see what I'm talking about. So I'm in the hoop house, and as I've explained to you guys, I have the chickens in here all winter. Like, we were really busy last year and there was a lot of weeds, and I just let my chickens in the hoop house all winter long because I don't grow in the hoop houses during the winter because we live in the north and that's really expensive to heat. So they're in here and they do a really fantastic job. And you can see that they actually I have quite a bit of debris in here. And normally I am bringing plugs in here and I'm not seeding. So I would just start to seed, like work the soil and seed right into the soil and not worry about the debris. But I am going to clean this up. So you can see, you'll have to pop over to YouTube if you actually want to see this. But overall, I'm going to give the hoop house a pretty decent raking. So I've got a hard rake and I just go through because the chickens, you give them scraps and there's bits of walnuts out here. There's bits of everything. And I could clean this up, rake it all up, and haul all of this debris outside and use it as mulch. Or I could simply burn it. You're going to see that when it's a good time to plant your hoop house, lots of weeds are starting to come up already. Now I'm going to get in here and work this. So as I work it, these little weeds are going to get killed. But there is one technique you could do. Like, let's say, okay, I'm going to rake this all out, get rid of all of this debris that's in the hoop house. And then I could simply come through with a Red Dragon flame torch. And you can use this, you hook this up to a propane tank, super simple. You turn it on and you can come in and burn these baby weeds real quick and kind of burn the top of the soil to help with weed pressure. It never really gets rid of all the weeds. There's so many weed seeds in my soil that you just fight weeds all of the time. And we're going to talk about how to fight weeds here in a second. But the flame weeder is one way to do that. Now, the reason I am actually going to pull out all of the debris that's in here, because one year I thought, I'm just going to burn all this debris as I'm burning these weeds. And there was so much smoke that got caught up in the greenhouse here that I had to open it. I just step out and take a breath. So this year I'm just going to rake it out and not deal with all of the smoke. But this will work good for killing those weeds before I start to work the soil, if I want to do that. Or I'll just start working the soil and kill these weeds as I go. So how do I want to go about getting this hoop house ready to plant? And I've got lots of choices, okay? I'm working down to being a small grower, as you all know, but literally I could bring my tractor in here. We've got the big doors. I could bring my tractor in here, get all of this tilled up, make my raised beds, and be ready to go. But that brings up a lot more weed seeds that are in the soil. And I don't really want to do that. I'm also trying to work in a way that I can just be like a one-man show and not have to have a lot of tools, because I know that you may not have a lot of tools. And so when I come out here and I look at the space, and maybe it's just me or one of my kids, I'm like, okay, today, let's just rake this off and work up this section of the garden. And that makes it really, really enjoyable, because then it's like, yeah, I'm just going to come out here and dig one small area, one bed, and prepare it. And then maybe the next day come in and plant it. So you can come in here and you can go Hall's balls and get it all raked out, get it all killed, dig it all up and go for it. You can bring in a tractor. If you have a walk behind rototiller, you can totally do that. I think if you had one of those really small tillers, and this is my raised bed from last year, and I was just going and walking down the aisle and tilling that up, that's fancy. I don't worry too much about the spaces where we will be walking because we're walking there. So I'm not going to sit there and work up those aisles. I'm only going to work up the beds that we're doing. So I could bring in my tractor, start from scratch, but that brings up a lot of weed seed. Okay. Or I could bring in a tiller. Not going to do that this year. I'm just going to actually walk in, break this up and till the beds up with, I do not even have a broad fork. I'm always so big in the field and with tractors and stuff like that, but literally I just have a garden fork. So after I have swept this up and killed the seeds, I am just going to sit here and go down my bed like this. And it doesn't, just go as deep as I can. Now a broad fork surely is better. I see a lot of gardeners do the broad fork. And when I'm pushing my garden fork down into the soil, and you can see I'm stepping on my bed and moving backwards as I go, but I'm trying to go as deep in the ground as I can. I can actually feel a hard pan down underneath as I do this, as I put my fork into the soil and loosen it, but I'm trying to go as deep as I can. And so I can come in and plant my plants in this nice, lovely raised bed, and I'm not disturbing the soil too much. And this works really good. And I can come out with one or two kids and we'll just knock out this little area. Okay, but I have another tool. Now after I've kind of done this, I can get down here and just with my hands and break up the soil, break up the clods. Okay, and look, that's really looking ready to plant up. Or I could bring my rake in and just kind of work up the soil a little bit, just like this. If you're a person that doesn't want to get down on the ground, this is just great. The worms are going to come. This is good exercise, you guys. Can you hear me breathing heavy already? It's been like winter. I swear, you lose your muscle tone so fast. It is such a bummer. But you can see how this really is going to shape up to be a nice bed to come plant in. All right. But I did want to show you another tool. And I want to show you these basic ways and talk about these basic ways because you don't need a lot of money to do this. Literally out here, a garden fork and a simple rake could get it done. And you see now when I go in, oh my goodness, because I never walked on the beds last year, they're just not compact and it goes in really nice. But let me show you a wheel hoe. You don't have to have this. If you don't have, I'll show you this wheel hoe. And it has like a long blade on it. Now, you don't want to go too deep with this blade because right now I'm just kind of killing these weeds. But you can see how this would clean up your aisles so easily. And what's lovely about this is that when you're in here, it's actually just really enjoyable. Like, okay, I'm going to go out to the hoop house and just weed the aisles real quick so those don't get out of control. And you can see now why getting rid of this debris is a good idea, because your hose and things will catch that debris. But look, this just, and it's raining, and it's so lovely to be in here. So there's that. But this wheel hoe has attachments. Again, you do not have to use this. I'm going to show you ways that you don't have to have all of this more expensive equipment if you don't have it or can't afford it. In time, you might, when you start to actually sell flowers, you might be thinking, okay, this year I am going to get this machine because this will save me time. You get to a point that you can sell some flowers and justify buying something that's going to speed up a process or get you more time. Okay, this one is a claw, kind of a cultivator. And here I am in my raised bed. And even though I am inside the hoop house doing this, it's exactly the same outside. Yes, outside you would have rain compacting these more, but you still could fork it up and get it working if you didn't have a rototiller. And if you lived in a city, oh my goodness, you wouldn't even probably have a space this big. And it's just not that bad. But here, we're up on the bed, and I'm using this cultivator. And do you see, like, this is not that hard. Like, I'm just going to come through and break up the soil with this little wheel hoe attachment that is a cultivator. Oh my goodness, this makes me want to just start planting already. I just think about all of this nutrition. Well, I grow flowers and I don't eat them. But I do always think about growing vegetables, and then I kill them because I care more about the flowers than I do the vegetables. But even how it's going through with all this bigger stuff. See, I love all of this debris because I know that that breaks down and feeds the worms. So I just hate to take it out. Maybe I'll just like leave it in here. And then after I plant, I'm going to grab all of this debris that I have. Well, it's kind of big, and I could nestle it around my plants like that if you want. So you see how that cultivated, we went through the cultivator. Now what would happen if I came in with the garden fork? Okay. And of course I'm going to work backwards as I go, because I am actually on my bed. So that's fast and easy to turn. Let's see, the hoop house I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beds. Maybe I could get 7. And if you did not have that wheel hoe, here's just a normal hula hoe or stirrup hoe. I can just get rid of these guys, make sure it's nice and sharp. Really enjoyable. And if we didn't have all this debris, you could do it in your aisles too. But you can see how there's lots of options. And in time, you're going to be able to purchase the tools that you want to do this. And the next thing after we prepare this whole bed, I'll lay the drip irrigation, and then I'll lay plastic if I want to. Okay, after I have all my beds made, these raked out, you get to make some more choices. Do you just want to plant and then weed everything as you go throughout the season? There's one thing I have learned is that labor, oh my goodness, weeding is public enemy number 1. And you will have a lot of money into fighting back the weeds. So if you can afford laying down landscape fabric and burning it and planting into that, literally that will save you a ton of time having to come back and weed. But if you don't have that, you can't afford that. My goodness, the world has been gardening forever without landscape fabric. And so you can absolutely get in here. In fact, many years we did just plant. Back in the day, when I would have a big crew, it was not a big deal. I would be like, no, I value the time. Let's just get this planted and get to all the seeding and the harvesting of all the things that had to do with the branches. And I knew that I would have a crew of 5 or 6 people. Everybody would take a bed. We would come out here for half an hour or an hour and be done. And so that's the choices I made at that point. Now with a much smaller crew, and it may just even be me, I'm like, you know what? I value my time, and I know that when it comes time to actually sell flowers and do those things, and because I'm small, I'm going to go with landscape fabric. In fact, I ordered some the other day from Farmer's Friend because it's already burned. And I'm like, yep, I happen to know that labor is very expensive. So I can buy this, because by the time I pay somebody to do the weeding, I literally could have bought that and used it year after year. So in the long run, you actually would be saving money. And because I'm not doing acres and acres, because I would never do landscape fabric back in the day, I did plastic mulch, and that was very affordable compared to the landscape fabric now. But now I'm like, yep, I can pencil that out. I know exactly that will save me money and save me a ton of time on this small scale level. So that is absolutely what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here, make my beds, lay down my drip, pin down my landscape fabric, and plant in it. And then in the aisles, we'll see. It looks to me like the landscape fabric is going to pour over into the aisles a little bit. So that's great. If they don't, I saved bags of leaves from last fall. People from the community bring them to me because we started this whole leaf campaign where it's like, bring me your leaves. I live just down the road from the dump, and people do. I would even go into town and get bags of leaves that people put out on the corners. I would just knock on their doors and say, can I get your leaves? I value the leaves so much because they're perfect mulch. So I will bring those bags in here and lay them down in the aisles to dump out the leaves on the aisles so that we're preventing weeds in the aisles. And then of course those break down and you're building the fertility in your soil. So if you guys hear thumping or all of that, it's actually raining and I love it. I love working in my greenhouse and it's raining outside and it's cold and it's nice and warm in here. It's just so amazing. Okay, so it's not a big deal. You come in here and you're like, kind of a little mess. I got to get this going on, but it isn't. Just attack a small side at a time, maybe 1 row a day and put it together and get it planted. And it all works out great. You guys, I also want to say thank you so much for following this podcast and reaching out to me. I had a few people actually send me a video and my heart, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys are me, 16 years ago with all of that hope and this dream of growing a business with flowers. And I want to just say thank you so much for reaching out. I am actually working on a way to be able to communicate with you because one thing I know is that there's a lot to learn and understand. As many conferences as I flew away to so I could learn how to be a flower farmer, that was really expensive. Like the airfare, the hotel, the cost of the conference, all of that. And so I am actually working on a membership where I can pop in, get your guys' questions, see your guys' questions, answer them, and bring some curriculum to it too, like just give you lessons. So be watching for that to drop. I have a lot to figure out with all of that though, but I am working on it. Thank you so much. If you don't have a hoop house, it doesn't matter. You can also get a cat tunnel and you don't even have to have that. Coming up, as we move into the season, you're totally gonna see how I would garden if I didn't have one of these. Okay, you guys, God bless. Have a great week. Hopefully you bought some seeds at the grocery store if you haven't ordered any in. And we'll meet back and be talking. I think the next thing we're going to talk about is raspberries and the happy accidents that happen when you just start to do something. Like when you start to grow the flowers, all of a sudden, doors are going to open. You actually don't know where you're going, but you're going somewhere. And so I'm going to share with you my crazy, you pick raspberry part of this farm.